Speaking show, you first need to open the video that is being streamed live. Look for the chat box on the side or bottom of the video player. This is where you can type your message. Click inside the chat box and use your keyboard to type out what you want to say. You can type words, use emojis, or even ask questions. Once you've typed your message, press the enter key on your keyboard or click the send button. Your comment will then appear in the chat for everyone watching the live stream to see. If you want to send another comment, just type it in the chat box again and press enter or send. Your new comment will show up below your previous one.
Good day. Here's how I'm going to start today with you. Senior attorney with over 40 years at the Jamaican bar, Valerie Nita Robertson, said this in court this past week. This is outrageous to have a courthouse and you have women lawyers and nowhere to go and we. It's crazy. And it's not just here alone. The big Supreme Court, there's a room that the bar is said to be responsible for. And none of the toilets can flush. They are filthy. I have to run down the road to find a place to wee because I cannot do what a man does. And I don't know when that day will ever come. Look, people, you might think that we are talking about, we would call up this eminent attorney's name in connection with the Privy Council or with some legal precedents or with some huge case that she has, and she has had many. No, we want to focus you a little bit on this, on the way we are. She was speaking, Valerie Nita Robertson, well known, in the Kingston and St. Andrew Parish Court last week, when she said she would consider migrating. Here's what she said. Because Jamaica is no longer a place to live. It wasn't about the Privy Council, I'm saying. It wasn't about any new legislation. It was about one of the nasty areas of Jamaican life. Decent sanitary facilities in the country's courts, or in any public place for that matter. And about perils of trying to get parking. Yes, she was talking about that too. Good day. Frankly Speaking, episode 136. It's about what's happening to us in Jamaica. Not the rate of growth, not the amount of remittances so far this year, not the failing education system, not what's happening in the health service, not the prohibitive price of vegetables about which we hear there's price gouging. No, none of that. It's help us understand what is happening to our country. Is Patrick Smith. Now, Mr. Smith is a historian and commentator. Some will know him as a former president of the JTA, Jamaica Teachers Association, and interim secretary general he was as well. But he's here in his capacity as a commentator, nothing to do with the JTA. Winnie Anderson Brown and Desmond Richards, our regular commentators, are with us too today. Podcast aims to look at what is happening to us. What is happening to us? And I'm going to tell you about the gentleman you see on the screen, a 71-year-old man who died at the airport where there was no standing ambulance service. Now, he was stripped of watch and other valuables on the way to the morgue. Nothing new, some will say, because people in traffic crashes, mourning and dying, have been robbed of their phones. People use those said phones to send ghoulish pictures to others. There is garbage everywhere. The unplanned settlements are spreading right across the point. What's happening to us? Patrick Smith, please tell us what's happening to Jamaica and whether there is cause for concern. Patrick. Can you hear us?
We're not hearing him.
Patrick, we are not hearing you. We're going to come right back to you. And I think we're going to pick up first with Winnie, who understands his values and attitudes issues. Patrick, we're having a little problem with you. Winnie.
Okay, am I monitoring that sound in the background? Okay. Now, first of all, I want to create some context here. Let us not pretend as if there was once upon a time when everything was good in Jamaica. Let us not begin by sanitizing the past and make it appear as if things are bad just now. As a child, I remember hearing the horrible story of the Kendall crash. The story is told of a man, and that crash was the worst crash in the history of Jamaica. That train crashed at Kendall in Manchester, where 200 persons died and a number of others were injured. And the story is told that this man, his watch was being taken from his hand when he shouted, "Good God, make me dead no." I am not saying that to say it was happening before, so we should allow it to continue. I am saying that while we discuss these topics, we should not allow our minds to go to a time when things were perfect. There's no time like that. So let's not sanitize the past. That's the first comment I would make on that. When the Bible Cain killed Abel, why? He was jealous of the sacrifice that Abel presented to God. And there are a number of stories in the Bible of wickedness, incest, the story of David, a man after God's own heart, that saw this woman bathing and decided that he would have the husband killed to have her. All of this, I am saying that there was never a time when all was well. So let us remember that while we discuss. It is wrong. It was wrong then. It is wrong now. I am not saying because it used to happen, we should accept it. I am saying, let us remember that this problem is not new. It's only magnified by social media. So we hear far more than we used to hear. And far more people are involved.
You're talking as if we must feel normal, Winnie.
No.
We should be feeling normal about this. We should understand that it's a little bit, you're hearing a little bit more about it. I am disagreeing with you strongly.
No, it is not normal. I am saying that it was wrong then, it is wrong now, but the problem is it has become normalized. People are accepting it. That is the problem. It has.
But Winnie is making a fundamental point there, you know, that life for the vast majority of black people in Jamaica is worse in the past than what it is right now, you know. Let us get that very straight, you know. My father's life,
you mean
was worse than mine.
Materially worse? You mean materially worse?
The living, the social condition in Jamaica, the social economic condition that my father experienced was worse than what I experienced. Right? Was worse. The conditions that the vast majority of black Jamaicans lived in during the 40s and 50s. It was worse than now.
But I think that we all expect that. I think that we all expect improvements over the years, over the decades, from one generation to the next. I think that we expect that. I think that's how societies go and develop.
I agree with you. Each generation is supposed to improve, and the other generation, the one that they succeed. I agree with that. But Winnie is making a point, which is a valid point, that Jamaica was known. There are people who try to paint a picture like in the past, those were glory days. There were no glory days in Jamaica for black people. None.
Which fine, and which is a different argument. But I want to come back to that issue about these values and attitudes. Which is accepted and which is a different argument as well. But Winnie, we interrupted you.
The point I'm making is that we should not sanitize the past, because what is going on is totally unacceptable. But at the same time, let us not pretend as if there was a time when it was perfect. Murder is not normal. It is wrong when a vehicle crashes and people just go and prey on the living and the dead and dying and take pictures and send it around. It is wrong. But in looking at it, let us not pretend as if there was a time when everything was perfect. That's the point.
But we're not starting there, that to me, Winnie, is assault. It's an attempt at an excuse to bring down or to normalize the present situation. And you are saying exactly the
No, we're not normalizing anything.
Normalizing.
No, frankly. No rational thinking person cannot rationalize normalize what is happening in Jamaica right now. The unsanitary condition that the council spoke about in the courthouse. Yeah. We couldn't normalize that. That is totally unacceptable.
No.
The behavior that we
are widespread. It's widespread. It's not it's not a special circumstance. It's all over the country.
Yes.
That is totally unacceptable. It is not something that can be normalized nor accepted as part of normal modern living. No, it can't.
So tell me why it is not this. That and other areas of our life are not attracting the attention from the political classes and from people in Jamaica who are better off as well.
I don't think it's because they are not uncomfortable with this, because every Jamaican understands that going behind bars really doesn't help. And even with the security services that people have, people are still uncomfortable and afraid because you can't live behind bars. So we accept that what is happening now is unacceptable. The only thing I'm saying is that when we discuss it, let us not make it appear as if it was okay and now it is not okay. Once upon a time it was okay and now it is not. Let us not have the discussion appear that way. That's the point I'm making.
And I would like to ask you, Winnie, what is there around the society right now that gives you greater comfort, gives you comfort? And so I've gone all the way over there. So what about the society?
That gives me comfort?
Comfort, yes. And by the way, let's try to welcome back Patrick Smith. I don't know, Patrick, whether you are now on with us again.
He seems muted still. Yeah.
Patrick, are you still muted? Speak. Oh my. Patrick, are you trying to speak?
No, his lips are sealed.
All right. Go ahead, Winnie.
Yes. So the danger is that we are looking at things were good and before and now they are bad. And that is where the discussion goes very often. That is why, in order to find solutions, people reach to the past and say, let us look back. I am saying what is happening now is intolerable, and we need to find solutions now, without making it appear as if things have just gone bad. That's the point.
Okay. Fair enough. Desmond, is that your position too? And what makes you comfortable about the society? Because there are lots to be uncomfortable about. There's a lot, and it doesn't require us to go too far to get any comparisons.
No, I am very uncomfortable with the many aspects of Jamaican life today. I'm very I am uncomfortable with the level of discipline. I am uncomfortable with the standard of living of ordinary people, right? But the point I am making is that even where we are right now, in the past, life was worse for people like me, ordinary Jamaicans, right? It wasn't better. But there are many areas that we need to step up, to take some drastic action to improve living. Many areas.
And have we been moving on those areas, Desmond? One of the things that we can't shy away from, for example, is this expansion of informal settlements tied up with a lot with our history, etc. Why can't we, since it is clear, and since all the sociologists and since all the law enforcement officers and so on say that that's a big part of the problem of how we relate to each other, why can't we deal with that as an issue?
Well, that is that there is where I have an issue with the leaders of the state since 1962. Because as I have mentioned on this program, and those of us who follow the Jamaican history will understand that we, the sons and daughters of ex-slaves, remember what happened to us. After 400 years, we were given nothing at all, right? And therefore, I expect the leaders to address the landlessness as a main priority. And yes, attempts have been made to address it, but not enough. And therefore, I'm laying the blame squarely at the feet of the leaders of Jamaica since 1962 to address this issue. And going next year's election here, this is an issue, one of the issues.
Could be this year, let's say we mustn't locate everything in next year. It could be this year. Unlikely to be this year anymore, but could be this year too. Between now and next year, September.
So we mustn't locate what?
We mustn't just say it's going to be next year, because it could be this year.
No, listen, hold on, Franklin. We have to remember our history now.
Yeah.
In Jamaica since 1944, we have been having elections every 5 years. Remember that?
Yeah.
This is not something new. What will be new if when next year comes, there is not an election, right? So it is not unusual for us to next year is election year constitutionally, and we would like to see. We believe that there is going to be election, but the point I'm making is this: that one of the issues that I would like voters to put on their agenda is the issue of landlessness. In other words, when they are voting, when they are thinking of voting, that is something that they must be clear in their heads. Whoever I am voting for, are they going to address landlessness for nearly 1 million Black Jamaicans?
Desmond, I'm going to come back to you on that issue of landlessness, but I want to know if Patrick is now able to join us. Patrick, are you now able to join us? Are you now able to take it away?
Well, yeah. Are you hearing me now?
Yeah,
Yes.
go ahead, Patrick. Go ahead.
Yes.
Well, one other thing I've learned, there are some issues, right? The first one is that, of course, standards of behavior, conduct, and so on are prescribed by our society. And these are what reflected in our laws. Now, our laws, if we were to study the laws passed in Jamaica over the past 300 years, you would realize that you can, in fact, make a judgment on the basis of the laws passed. They reflect our society, and they reflect an aspect of our norms and value system. The unfortunate thing, and I'm just trying to reconnect with what was said prior. The fact really is our laws fundamentally reflect our historical background. If you look at many of the laws passed in Jamaica, they tend to be very, very, very punitive. And many of these that we have inherited, well, those that we have inherited, have not changed significantly. Look at the laws passed in Jamaica since 1962. Oh, why use 62 anyway? Because we had internal self-government way back in the 1950s. So let's look at the laws passed. Are they fundamentally different from those which were passed when we had a state run by plantocrats and merchants? No. Essentially, our laws, which are supposed to be the guidelines of our society, guiding our conduct, are essentially punitive. And to be
So what you're
brutally
saying,
honest
Patrick, is
with
that
you,
these laws, you're saying that these laws are not serving the Jamaican today? The laws that we have, which are sort of a guardrail on how we should behave, you're saying that they are not, what? They're not serving the Jamaican population?
no, what I'm saying really is that if you look at our laws, you get an idea of the expectations of those persons who prescribe the laws in the first place. In
Give
fact,
us an example, Patrick. Give us an example so that
for
we get
example, recently we increased traffic fines, right? Because we believe strongly in the punitive elements.
But Patrick,
Right.
don't go there, man. We have been trying to do everything apart from the corruption which is out on the road. The traffic situation is one of them that has forced Jamaicans backs against the wall. The traffic situation that we see out there where the whole place seems like that is the road to hell. You mean to say that because laws, the traffic fines have been increased widely across spectrum, that those are not serving Jamaica? Explain for us, Patrick, please.
So, as we say, the laws generally are guidelines, but there is a thinking behind the passing of these laws. And one obscene thing that we love to tell our people that crime does not pay, but it does pay. It does pay.
it pays.
What the government is showing by this is if you were to be driving outside the speed limit, you pay for it. And the government, in many respects, can build its budget based on many of these fines. There's this expectation that people will. So while we are bellyaching about perversion of many of our values, let me put another string to it. Do you realize that we are no less caring in 2024 than we were and I'm going to pick a date, in 1838?
I can't accept that, Patrick. I can't accept that, having lived here for decades and knowing how other people believe and dealt with their neighbors, and knowing what other people do with people who are their neighbors now. I can't accept that we are not a less caring society.
As Winnie had pointed out in the beginning, at the great train crash in Kendall, people were rifling through other person's pockets. Next thing I tell you is that whenever persons drown, individual, let's say a cargo went off that bridge, individuals who seek to rescue not only do it out of sheer altruism, but for what they can get from it. In other words, let's face it, are we as Jamaicans less kind to our fellow men? in 2024. I am putting forward the position that we are not. If you were to explore the pages of the Green,
let's hear from our colleagues here on their own experiences. Patrick, Winnie.
No, I grew up in a friendlier Jamaica than now. I don't accept that. I am a rural boy, and where I was raised, and significantly different from what it is now. Significantly different. The community, it was a friendlier place. We cared for each other more. We looked out for each other more. Well, for example, one critical example, as a boy going to school, we looked up to teachers. Teachers were one of our idols. Now, what is happening in the classroom now? When you talk to the teachers, their experience with students, no, it's significantly different from what I experienced. So I can't accept that the community that I grew up in as a boy was less caring than what it is now. No, that was not my experience.
So then,
Winnie, let's hear you, please.
Well, what I have been thinking while talking, and I look at the person who, it was a pig, if I heard correctly, that the woman and the pig. Was it a pig that was drowning, and the woman went in, and this young man lost his life? Why
in Mullins Road, Waltham, yes.
Right. I go there. The fact that people were that caring. It's a pig. It's her value, yes, but she went in after the pig, and somebody went in. Two persons went in. The sad thing is that one person lost his life in the whole incident. So on the whole, we have far more people now. The population has increased, and many of the kind deeds that are done are not really shared. Many of the kind deeds. And I think of even today, and the fact that people are still so very, very kind to me. I go towards the gate and someone says, I will open the gate for you, or someone will close the gate for me. I am
living in a different society than you and Patrick and maybe Desmond. And I just have to say it like I see. That this is a crude society. It's an uncaring society. This is a place where it is, when you compare it to other societies, similar history, similar size, smaller, bigger, this society is on its way, in a way, is not a place that you would want to easily, comfortably decide that this is where I want to live. This where we are at now. That's the Jamaica. I see no reason to varnish it. Talk. Of course, people must do caring acts. They do caring acts in prison. They did caring acts in whatever awful societies we can think about. But this society, as far as I'm seeing it, is not one that I would recommend to anyone as the way to build a society.
But Mr. Moderator, I put something to us. Do you realize that I think it was Gladys Knight in the song which says, everybody talks about the good old days. But she ends up by saying that, of course, come to think of it, these are the good old days for our children and our grandchildren. They do not have the frame of reference that we have. I lived in a world, I'm 76, but I lived in northern Manchester where parents used to beat children, tie them on a tree in a ants nest. And a child who was out of order would have been treated with by a neighbor. And when that neighbor reported to the parent, the poor child was in for another round. In other words, when you check it out, my past, which was not as bad as we think that they are today, was not much different from today. Our children back in the 1930s, 40s, 50s had to deal with the issue of the black heart man. Our children were raped back in the days too. You will not hear about it because the news media did not penetrate the nook and cranny of our society. Very often we get a Sunday gleaner 1 week later, we get one gleaner and somebody in the community read to us. What I'm driving at is let's say the story of Big Boy. Big Boy was a child who was kept behind in those days when we didn't do social promotion of children in our school. So Big Boy never passed the reading, never passed the arithmetic. So he's kept back. And Big Boy was a hero in as much as Big Boy was what you would call an aberration. There are children who attack teachers in school. Big Boy or Big Girl did that, contrary to what my colleague and friend asserted to.
So you are saying, Patrick, and before you answer the question, I'm going to ask Winnie to bring up some of those comments I see coming in after you answered Patrick. But you are saying, Patrick, that the way Jamaican children, for example, treat teachers today is pretty much the same as it was 30, 40 years ago. Is that what you're saying, Patrick?
Yeah, essentially, there are some nuances, but it's never a truism to say that, of course, our children were nice and responded like nice good children. They were truancy. In fact, go and read many of the blue books in Jamaica then. Truancy in Jamaican schools was high. And I was truant because I was afraid of the strap that the principal had or the cane. So rather than going to school, I went down the gully.
The skull. Winnie, can you just tell us some of the comments that we have been having? And then we're going to go, we're going to have Patrick wrap up, Patrick.
Okay.
But you go ahead, Winnie, and then Patrick, we're going to come back to you about the way forward. Go ahead, Winnie.
There's Marva Hewitt, who greeted us, and she says, well, Winnie, Jamaica is a tourism destination. This was not the case in the 1950s. I am not sure where that is going. I'm not sure about that. It would be good to say more about that. Rose Petgrave. I want to move to the part of Jamaica that these panelists are. LOL. Now, there is nowhere in Jamaica where you don't have people doing good deeds to some people. Even the worst place where you have gang warfare, you have people being kind to some people. So that is how it is. And there's no perfect spot in Jamaica. There are people who are good. It's always a mixed bag. That's the message. It's always mixed.
Keep going, Winnie. I think Jeffrey Ward there. Is that
Jeffrey, greetings. He's saying greetings to everyone. Yes, and Margaret is saying this is about the lack of sanitary facilities. Well, that is inexcusable. There is no excuse for that. It is sad, it is ugly, and it is a problem that needs urgent attention. There's no excuse for that.
all right, Patrick? Back to you, and we'll take comments. And if you want to send your comments, you can also send them to our WhatsApp number 503-9995, and you can send them here, and you can also send them on later on if you're watching too. So, Patrick, we'll give you the floor to do your wrap up. Next 3 minutes are yours because we missed out on them.
Just to say, colleague, human beings have not changed fundamentally. You can say from creation to now, right? Human beings are also highly opportunistic. We are regulated by each other, right? It's a level of tolerance or a lack thereof for certain things in our society. It is we who really determine whether a particular value system continues to exist. The fact is that many of us have good values. Even the person who commits a criminal act has values. He's a product, he or she is a product of the society that makes it. We must also recognize that some of the institutions that our state creates are also institutions which facilitate a certain type of behavior. You cannot expect to go to ATM or to a bank or to a government institution and expect to transact your business in good order. It is that sort of thing influences our behavior. It influences how we interact with each other.
And why we can't expect to get the thing done in good order in those circumstances?
Again, it is what our rulers think about us and how they are. In a very real sense, it's a tolerance that we have for the shortcomings of our administrators and our governors.
Patrick, absolutely where we are. And it's that tolerance is based upon our poor standards that we set for ourselves, the way we see ourselves as not even deserving of service from the people in the supermarket, in the pharmacy, in the tax office, wherever. We see ourselves often as to, because we are going to deliver that same service tomorrow in the place where we are from. And our qualities, and to go back to what Valerie Nita Robertson said earlier on, what is there doesn't even work. We don't even see it as anything.
That is true. We don't even set minimum standards.
A minute out of the time that you had, and I want to thank you for coming forward and putting your views forward and sharing with us today. And you were not sharing and reminding us all, just in case somebody came in, you were not sharing as a form of JTA. You were just a historian, and we are so sorry we couldn't get into much of your historical thought. But we appreciate
there will be something, a future one.
There will be.
But thank you very much for having me.
Thank you. And I want to say to our viewers and our listeners that we are trying to do a series on this, what's happening to Jamaica here. This is not the only one, and we have already actually lined up some people to go on for next week. Okay, we want to go quickly now to
let's hear
politics.
Marvel first. Let's just hear Marvel.
Go ahead, Winnie. Go ahead, Winnie.
That's correct, Patrick, and we accept the low standard at every level as the norm. That is what Marvel is saying. Thank you, Marvel, for your contribution, and everyone else. Yes.
The last few days have reminded those who needed prompting that we are in election season. Wednesday was nomination day in Northeast, Center and Northeast. There was a public protest in Morant Bay in St. Thomas calling for a by-election to fill a vacancy created there by the council who we featured, the late Mr. Brian. We featured him on this podcast. And then today is a public session of the 86th Annual Conference of the People's National Party. The PNP expects this to be their final conference before the next general election. And they've already said they're not interested in any local election. Give them the general. Constitutionally due by next year, September. Desmond, your take on where we are and what's happening.
Well, you mean, both parties are in election mode. As we speak right now, the opposition leader is supposed to be giving his address. I hope that he would use today's address to outline to the country, to the voters, what the PNP, what we should expect from a PNP government. What are the differences? We need to know what are the fundamental differences between the PNP and the JLP. The voters need to know that, and we hope that.
Desmond, you think the voters care? I have to ask you, and I'm not being rhetorical. You think the voters care about what's the difference between them, policy-wise?
If I think the voters are scarce?
Care.
Okay.
What the PNP stands
well,
for.
I don't know if the voters are scared.
Not scared. Sorry. Do they care? C-A-R-E.
You mean if they care? Yeah. Well, they should care. They should care. Because then, what would be you in choosing the government? You should have some reasons why you are choosing this party to form the government.
But they have reasons. They have reasons.
In other words, what I am saying to voters this time around, please use your vote wisely. Just don't vote because you're a PNP or a JLP. Vote for a reason. There are too many reasons affecting the life of the Jamaican people for us to just throw our hands in the air and don't care. We must be clear.
Desmond, you're going to have the opportunity over the next couple of months just to suggest why and to suggest what issues those might be. But I think that's an uphill task, Desmond, because we're down to the core of the political parties that are taking part in the process. We're down to the core. And it doesn't seem to me that people are taking on any of the issues that are out there. And there are many issues which you and the rest of us have brought up from time to time.
Well, as I said, I believe the voters should care because we have experienced both parties. We are going through an experience now, right? Look at the issues affecting the people, right? There are several issues affecting us. And therefore, in voting, I think we should think about those issues.
Noble position, Desmond. Noble position. Winnie, you want to say a word on that? Whether you think we'll ever get there or we are there?
Well, what I have to say is radical. We really need a different system where our votes don't just put people in power and we are not a part of it. We vote for people to think for us. The constituency structure, it doesn't serve us. It serves the MPs. It's just to put them there. We need a system where our voice really matter.
Okay.
That's our show for today. Thanks to our special guest. And we are going to come back to this issue of what's happening to Jamaica. Values and attitudes. We didn't call it out in those particular words and or terms because we didn't want to get anybody getting antsy or anything, but that's what we're talking about. Thanks to all of those who joined the live podcast and those who will go to the recorded show on the Frankly Speaking YouTube channel. We encourage you to share the podcast and subscribe to the channel. And Winnie, thank you for reading out the comments, some of those comments that came in. I see one or two still coming in. On behalf of Desmond Richards, Winnie Anderson Brown, and Joshua Black, he's the man with the technical support. I'm Franklin McKnight. Until then.